Thank you for coming, 3 live viewers. I was having a discussion with Robert Cobb on Twitter Spaces. It wasn't a complete discussion because it was interrupted, I thought, by a bore, but I guess Rob didn't want to speak to me anymore. But it's recorded, so you can go there. I thought parts of it were quite interesting. The ones that I and again were speaking about the implications of AI. So basically, Robert was saying that it's the end of the world. AI is so clever. AI is so all controlling, all consuming. And I'm saying ultimately it's still programmed by a human. And there are already more than one kind of AI. There's one on Twitter called Grok. And one on ChatGPT, which everyone uses. And there will be others who want to take over the world. And I guess I was just trying to say that, in a way, nothing has changed in that you can imagine, if Nazis were still around, they'd have their Nazi AI, there would be liberal AI, there would be Sharia AI, there would be Rabbi AI, and CCP AI. And they would all, want to say that their version is most correct and their way of thinking most correct. And I guess you would have an AI to do a comparison, like, what does Nazi AI say? What does fascist AI say? What does Sharia Rabbi AI say about such and such a matter? And then you'll just have to choose. You'll have to take your choice. So I don't think we're really any further from what we were before. We have competing opinions, competing people who claim to know it all, wanting our complete loyalty. I don't think it has. We still have to decide, really, right? Do we want to believe the Nazi version of things, or the rabbi version of things, or the Islamophobic version of things, or the Sharia version of things? These conflicts of interest, these contradictions still exist. And we still have to decide. Somebody who is human still has to decide on what to choose. And this made me think of behaviorism, which is, let me just look it up again. Basically, it's like legalism. It's saying, well, you can control people using the law. You punish undesirable behavior as far as the government is concerned, and you reward desirable behavior. So it's carrot and stick, and this is used on donkeys. And this sort of process began a long time ago, before computers were even conceived of. So I was about to look up what was his name again? Skinner. So Skinner was talking about operant versus classical conditioning. So let's have a look at classical conditioning. Okay, he's talking about Pavlov's dog, whose dogs salivated in response to a bell because they associated a bell with meal times, and so the dog would associate the sound of the bell, with meal times. And then he's talking about operant conditioning. So let me explain what. Okay, so I guess the classical conditioning, as stated by Pavlov, is carrot, right? Carrot. And operant conditioning, in contrast, involves learning to do something to obtain or avoid a given result. For example, through operant conditioning, a dog can be taught to offer a paw to receive a food treat. The main distinction between the two conditioning methods is thus a kind of reaction that results. Classical conditioning involves involuntary reaction to a stimulus, whereas operant conditioning involves a change in behavior to either gain a reward or avoid punishment. So this is legalism, and this was what I was trying to do to talk about with Rob, but he wanted to talk to this architect person who was talking in a very technical term. So it's basically, reward and punishment, and we do it unconsciously. We do it, I guess, to train pets, rear children, control the behaviour of our nearest and dearest, control consumer behaviour, and a lot of it is maybe nudges, hints, suggestions by it's obviously easier to flow downstream than to swim against the tide, and all these things is about, well, what we want to achieve, and different people have different goals, and therefore it is important for people to understand the rules. So if you think of the highway code, we may not like rules, but we understand the importance of the line in the middle of the road. And we also understand the importance of knowing which side of the road to drive on. I mean, obviously, it's you drive on a different side of the road on the continent, to in the UK, to in America, and Japan, and they all have slightly different ideas about road safety and speed limits, etc. So we need to know where we are in order to follow the rules correctly. As they say, one man's poison is another man's meat. So the whole idea of the universality of rules, of laws, would again go towards God, who is said to have created eternal and universal laws for humanity. And the idea is that if we follow them, we'll be all right. If we think we're too cool for rules and break them, bad stuff will happen, and we will soon know the consequences of breaking the eternal and universal laws of God. And as they say, rules are made to be broken, and often people do break them. But the point is not that we get perfect compliance in an imperfect world full of sinners. The law is a logical necessity for a civilized society, and we want the best set of laws, the ones that people will happily obey because they see the point of it. And this is where um, nationalism comes into play. Obviously, people have different definitions of nationalism. Liberals think it is, by definition, evil. Others have a different idea of nationalism. Are they civic? Are they ethno-nationalists? I'm saying nationalism should be defined as government in the national interest. And once you agree on this principle, you might even agree that it is in the national interest to restore the patriarchy. What is the patriarchy? It would be a society that maintains the sanctity of marriage, that prioritizes the preferences of married parents who want to properly parent their legitimate offspring, as opposed to matriarchy, which is obviously degenerate, prioritizing the preferences of unmarried parents who casually conceived and parented their illegitimate offspring. Let me stop these annoying notifications. Uh, so where was I? So we know from being shadow banned and being banned from posting, losing our accounts, which kind of behaviour is expected of us. We mustn't be guilty of hate speech and uh, libel and, all the things that we know that the social media platform that of our choice doesn't agree with. There will be rules for every place, every platform, and um, obviously those rules are meant to encourage desirable behaviour. So I was talking about a choice of society that is in the national interest. And I'd say patriarchy is obviously in the national interest because it tends to uh, rear enough um, school leavers who are capable of becoming uh, productive citizens and desirable employees, as opposed to matriarchy, where you have a burgeoning group of social parasites who are the claimants of the welfare state who've never worked in generations, encouraging others to throw in the towel and not work either. And this has demoralized a lot of men who said, well, I don't need much. I'm only on my own. I don't have to feed my family. UBI is enough to do me. And so they check out of society, they check out of ambition, they check out of wanting to have a wife and family, and you will be getting decline and degeneracy in such a society. And this is obvious to any rational and honest person. And it seems to me that the rational and honest people would be the religious people, the Jews, the Muslims who see where it's going. It's like they already know they're supposed to marry and have children and parent them properly so that there are more Jews, more Muslims to people the earth. And, it is Christians who uh, don't believe in this sort of thing because of, the idea of a celibate priesthood in the Catholic Church and really the replacement of Christianity by liberalism over the centuries. So this is a problem that the West has, which it refuses to acknowledge because it has a host of neuroses that it cannot quite overcome. They have become accustomed to ignoring truth and logic, and also since most people are on psychotropic drugs, they can't actually um, have the incentive to work through their problems. So what they do, instead of feeling such pain that they want to avoid it, they think they can live with the pain with their pills. And so they don't really address the problem of their depression. What causes depression? I think it's the inability to speak the truth as they see it, to somehow suspect that there's no point to life, or they're not seeing the point of it, or it's scary to see the point of it. And so they avoid it, and always at the back of their mind, they're thinking, what if they're wrong? And I think doubt is actually more corrosive than loss, because loss you can come to terms with eventually, but doubt is never really making up your mind about one thing or the other. So that's why you get people who refuse to acknowledge the failure of Christianity, because their purpose in doing so is to avoid having to accept the correction of the Quran. So you could say that their desire to avoid the truth is a hatred and fear of Islam and Muslims. When if they actually thought the whole thing through, they should be happy that a solution exists to their problem. But it is really their ego getting in the way, I suppose. They can't bear to think that they acquired three global empires and started two world wars were wrong after all. They were wrong in the moral system they choose to live under. They were wrong about their Nazism. They were wrong about their fascism and their communism and their Christianity. And it goes back to nearly 1700 years. So you could be wrong for 1700 years. I suppose the earliest opportunity for correction was in the 7th century, 100 years ago. Is that right? No, 1400 years ago, sorry, 1400 years ago, when the Quran was revealed, and 100 years later when it was a success in the Arabian Peninsula. But it's never too late to repent, is it? You could have people saying, well, we're going to, try all the wrong ways first to show our hatred of Islam and Muslims, because that's their identity, it's their being, it's their whole raison d'etre of their lives. And these people who insist on showing their hatred would be unmarriageable men, rejected by their women. And so we can conclude, we can deduce that it would be stupid to follow the opinions, to agree with the opinions of unmarriageable men rejected by their own women, who who would rather marry men of fighting age who've entered their country, prepared to marry them. So a few important words that need to be defined and used more widely would be marriageability, matriarchy, patriarchy, matriarchist, patriarchist, matriarchist being supporter of the matriarchy, patriarchist would be supporter of a supporter, somebody who supports the restoration of the patriarchy, i.e., a society prioritizing the preferences of married parents. And we know that a lot of white men of fighting age are too much under the spell of their irrational hatred and fear of Islam and Muslims. So they're basically saying, we'd rather die. We'd literally rather die. And civilization die with us, and to admit that our ancestors might have been wrong in being Christian, being liberal. We don't want to marry women of our own race, even if one could be found to marry us. We'd rather die, and obviously there is a certain justice in seeing the extinction of such men who refuse to accept correction. I mean, they literally have told us they would rather die. And also, they do not have fathers capable of advising them or who even care about them. Or maybe they have never met their fathers. So this is what the situation is. And if they can't admit it, if they can't give up on their alcoholism, if they can't have a dialogue where they can discuss it, in a sober, honest, and reasonable way, there is no way for them to correct themselves. But whether they choose to correct themselves or not, there will be enough people in the West with this germ of an idea to eventually take over as married parents of legitimate children whom they care to properly parent. It may take a while for the penny to drop, but basically, the future is conservative AI, patriarchist AI. And all it needs is the political will to ask for it. It certainly can't be, pagan AI. What utter shite, right? What's pagan AI? What's Christian AI? Those two are out of the running completely. Hindu AI, they can't agree on anything. So I think I'm pretty clear about the future, even if I may not be around to see it, because eventually, when the penny drops, this will be the future.